Howdy, folks. Ever caught yourself watching those Hollywood westerns where the lawman strides into the saloon and everyone from the card sharks to the bar seductress, even the no-gooder in the corner, tips their hat and calls him Marshal or Sheriff? Well, let me tell you, in the real Wild West, those titles weren't as interchangeable as the movies make them out to be. These ain't your shiny, polished heroes from the silver screen. No, sir. Being a town marshal was a mix of danger, quick wit, and a heap of strange happenings that never made it to those Hollywood scripts. Hold it right there, partner. Danger awaits those who don't click that subscribe button. Subscribe for survival in the untamed Wild West. Let's take a gander at the lawmen of the Old West, a complicated bunch with badges shining in all sorts of places. You see, out there in the wilds, keeping the peace wasn't a one-man job. It was a whole ladder of lawmen, each with their own patch of land to watch over. The U.S. Marshals Service, the oldest federal law enforcement agency in the United States, was established by the Judiciary Act of 1789. This here act was passed by the first Congress on September 24, 1789, during the presidency of George Washington. The creation of the U.S. Marshals Service was part and parcel of the establishment of the federal judicial system. Right at the top were them U.S. Marshals, big dogs with the law reaching far and wide, all across them federal territories. They were the ones you'd call when the trouble was bigger than just one town or county. Then you had your county sheriffs, tough as nails, patrolling the stretches outside town limits. They kept an eye on everything from the dusty trails to the far-off homesteads. In the heart of the towns, that's where the city marshals and town constables came in. And let's not forget the deputies, the right-hand men to the sheriffs and marshals. They were the ones doing the legwork, making sure the law was upheld in every nook and cranny. In some of the bigger settlements, you'd find constables, kind of like the local police force, handling the day-to-day scuffles and scrapes. Now, these marshals, they had one heck of a job, keeping law and order right within the town's boundaries. Unlike them county Roman sheriffs, a marshal's world was the town itself, its streets, saloons, and every nook and cranny where trouble might brew. Now, how'd one become a town marshal? Well, it varied. Some marshals were elected by the town folks themselves, a real sign of trust and respect. Others were appointed, picked out for being just right for the badge. Either way, a marshal had to be something special. First off, they needed leadership, the kind that keeps a cool head when the lead starts flying, and the kind that folks would naturally follow. Bravery? You bet. A marshal faced down all sorts of dangers without blinking an eye, but it wasn't all about being tough. They also needed a good dose of diplomacy. Talking down a tense situation or settling a spat without firing a shot was often the mark of a true marshal. But make no mistake, when push came to shove, they were ready to stand toe-to-toe with the toughest outlaws. Let's tip our hats to some of the most famed town marshals whose tales are as bold as a Texas sunset. These ain't just your run-of-the-mill lawmen, they're legends as much a part of the West as the tumbleweeds and dust trails. Let's start with Wyatt Earp, a name that rings like a six-shooter in every corner of the West. Wyatt wasn't just any marshal, he was a force in Dodge City, and later, a legend in Tombstone. His part in the gunfight at the OK Corrals become a tale as big as the sky over the plains. Then there's Virgil Earp, Wyatt's brother, who wore the marshal's badge in Tombstone. Virgil was the kind of lawman who stood tall against the howling winds of outlaws and chaos, especially when the lead started flying at the OK Corral. Can't forget about Bat Masterson, the marshal who brought a touch of dandy to Dodge City. Bat was sharp as a tack, showing folks that being a marshal was as much about using your head as your holster. And of course, Wild Bill Hickok, whose shadow stretched long, crossed towns like Hayes and Abilene. Wild Bill was as famous for his gun handling as he was for his ways of keeping the peace, making him a story told round campfires for generations. These fellas were more than just marshals. They were the heart and soul of the Wild West, symbols of a time when law and order were as wild as the land itself. All right, y'all, imagine you're stepping into the boots of a U.S. state marshal in the heart of the Wild West. The sun's just breaking over the dusty horizon, and your day's about to unfold in ways only this untamed land knows. Your day kicks off as the world's still waking up. First off, you check on your trusty steed. She's your partner in crime fighting, after all. With your badge shining and revolver at your hip, you start with a morning patrol. The town's quiet now, but you're keeping a keen eye out. Last night's revelries in the saloon could mean a few drunks snoozing in alleys or some unsettled scores. Come midday, the town's buzzing like a beehive. You're walking the main street, tipping your hat to the townsfolk. But it's not all pleasantries. You're there to settle a dispute at the local mercantile, talking sense into two ranchers squabbling over a fence line. It's your words, not your guns, that diffuse the tension. As the sun beats down in the afternoon, things heat up. A telegram's come in. Bank robbers spotted heading your way. You gather a posse, men you trust, and plan your move. It's a game of cat and mouse, and you're the law's sharp claw. Strategy, courage, and a cool head. That's what it takes. The sun sets, painting the sky with streaks of fire. The town's alive with music and laughter. But your work ain't done. You're patrolling the saloon, keeping peace among the poker games and whiskey. Your presence alone reminds folks there's order in this wild world. Night falls and you're at your office, lamp burning, poring over reports and wanted posters. The job's never really done, but in these quiet moments, you reflect on the day's wins and losses. As a town marshal in one of them dusty Wild West towns, your world's the town, from the rickety boardwalks to the swinging saloon doors. You're the one who keeps things from getting too wild, a task that's tougher than a $2 steak. Now, just outside your town, that's where the county sheriff reigns. He's looking after the broader strokes of the land, keeping an eye on the cattle rustlers and the like. Sometimes, y'all gotta work together like two cowpokes on a cattle drive. It ain't always smooth riding, but it's part of the job. Then every once in a while, in rides a U.S. Marshal. These fellas have got the whole country as their backyard, and they mean serious business. When they show up, it's like a storm cloud passing over. Everyone knows something big's brewing. But let's not forget about the heart of the town, the folks. As Marshal, you're mixing and mingling with them all day. You're there to keep the peace, sure, but you're also a bit of a local celebrity. You know everyone's business, from Miss Lucy's runaway chicken to Old Man Jenkins' feud with the miller. Your deputies are your trusty sidekicks. Some are as reliable as a well-oiled revolver, others, well, they might need a bit more keeping an eye on. But they're your crew, and together, y'all keep the town safe. And then there's the wild card, the vigilantes. These groups pop up like weeds, taking the law into their own hands. They can make your life a whole heap of trouble, like trying to rope a stampeding bull. All in all, being a town marshal means you're dancing a delicate two-step, working with sheriffs and U.S. Marshals, wrangling your deputies, and keeping the townsfolk happy. Picture this. You're earning enough to keep your belly full and your boots on, but you ain't getting rich. Most days, you're out there in the sun, keeping peace and order, maybe sharing a laugh with the townsfolk or playing a hand of cards to unwind. Now, it's a tough job, especially if you've got a family waiting at home, worrying about your hide every time you're out on the streets. But in the town's eyes, you're more than just a lawman. You're a symbol of safety, the one who stands between chaos and peace. Sure, it's a hard life, but for those who wore the badge, it was all about keeping the town safe, one day at a time. In the tales of the Wild West, them town marshals sure left a mark as bold as a branding iron on a steer. These lawmen, they weren't just carrying a badge and a gun, no sir. They were the heart and soul of their towns, the very pillars that kept the place standing straight in times wilder than a bucking bronco. Imagine a marshal walking down the dusty street, his presence alone bringing a sense of calm to the chaos of frontier life. They were the builders of towns, the keepers of peace in a land where law was as scarce as shade in the desert sun. And let's not forget, the stories of these marshals are the kind that get passed down round the campfire, turning into legends that outlive the men themselves. Their deeds, their showdowns with notorious outlaws, and their acts of unexpected kindness, they're woven into the fabric of the American West. So when y'all think back on the Wild West, remember them town marshals? They were more than just characters in a dusty old tale. They were real-life heroes who left a legacy as enduring as the rugged land they protected. Well, folks, before we ride off into the sunset, I want to remind y'all to tip your hats and hit that subscribe button to History Unlocked. If you've enjoyed our journey through the wild tales of the Wild West, make sure you're hitched to our wagon for more. And don't be shy now, drop us a comment, share your thoughts, or toss in a question. We're all about unlocking the mysteries and stories of the past together. So stay tuned and keep those eyes peeled for more adventures with History Unlocked. Y'all come back now.